Hello, historical people. That probably sucked. HEMA swords and shields. Okay, very basic stuff. Okay, we do see a lot of content out there for sword and buckler. There isn't really any sources unless you go, is it Marozzo or whatever, with the rotella and things like that. But in terms of like medieval, the only source we have for shields and things is like your I-33 sword and buckler type of stuff, which is very unfortunate because they are different weapons and there's a few little specialties to it. Ultimate concepts are kind of similar in a way. I'll tell you some differences. Where did I put my buckler? There's a few different types of shields that I'll go over. Namely, just go over the difference between shields and buckler. I'm not sure, I probably covered this before or tried to, but a buckler operates under the premise of the cone of defense, okay? That's why typically you'll see bucklers being held out, okay, to give you that kind of distance, to give you that kind of shape. Cone of defense, simply put, look how much of me you can see when my buckler's close to me. Look how much of me you can see when the buckler's further away, okay? And if an attack was to come, namely a cut or whatever, I now have that, all those angles of deflection around it, okay? Obviously, quickly into playing with the bucklers with our Loughborough chapter. We have Fred and Rob, who are great. They've basically been doing sword and shield since they started #HEMA, and they've had hundreds of thousands of sword and shield bouts, okay? Now their stuff, they don't put on YouTube too much, it's all on Instagram. You need to go check them out if you're interested in sword and shield. I'll drop a link to one of the workshops that I did with them a while back, and also I'll drop a link to their Instagram pages because they are all about shields and other fun stuff. So anyway, and axes as well, they do a lot about axes. But anyway, cone of defense, and then the shameless plug for the Order of the Blade guys. So yeah, cone of defense, further that is out, these sort of better angles, better protection I have. In theory, that goes out the window as soon as you close on this, then you get some favorable angles, blah, blah, blah. But obviously, buckler fencing is fencing, so you're usually quite far away. Anyway. A shield, we'll just go with the heater shield for now, is an area denial tool, okay? They're heavier, right? I can come out here with it all the time and that sort of thing. With the heater specifically, I don't need to because it's got that lip there. So if I want to protect my hand, I can just follow that lip, coming up, follow that lip, whatever. And it's got a nice sort of viewport there. So let's say I'm wearing a helmet, I've got a nice little view there. I can keep you at bay. It's strapped to my arm, so I've got no choice but to hold it in my arm, so I can obviously come out and things. But it starts getting a bit funky when I start trying to go around the side and do some of the I-33 contrarias and guards that are all over this side. They're doable in a way, but they're awkward and not really what this type of shield's designed for. Obviously, why would they be strapped? Probably if I'm on a horse or if I just want to carry them. Okay, there was a lot of shields that had multiple different configurations, so you could hold them, do what you want with them, hang them up, stick them around your back, whatever. Okay, so strap shield, that's one thing. Best kept quite nice and close, and you've got a lot of room to work around here. But I don't need that cone of defense as such. I can benefit from it very slightly, but it's already here. I can get up there if I need to and get up there, whatever. It makes more sense for me to keep this sort of couched, sort of near my head. So look, blocking that entire upper region, blocking the midsection. I'm not going to drop it to block low because that's silly. I'm just going to move my feet if I need to, okay? If you're bothered, I do have a bunch of sword and shield fights on my YouTube. Again, I'm going to send you links to Fred and Rob and all their good stuff. And there's a bunch more of us in the order actually that have been starting to use sword and shield fairly competitively. So when I remember who they are, I'll drop some links to them as well, because why not, eh? Viking Round shield, obviously the OG shield, the best shield ever invented. in my opinion. Mainly because it sucks to fucking use, because it is the heaviest and it is possibly the most unwieldy until you get used to it. Namely, well, the big thing with this, and I didn't really mention it with the heater shield because the heater is a little bit better designed for fighting. Obviously, this one is very good protection. I lean that up on me, like, you know, I'm pretty much gone. I do technically have the cone of protection on this, but like a small hit just folds those at the edges because it's just a center grip. So physics is not on my side. Right. So what I want to be worrying about with this one is keeping it nice and close. Now, it could be high, it could be a bit more center so that the weight's not absolutely killing me. And the cool thing about the Viking shield is it's like 2 foot of size. You know, I can just punch people with that much more effectively than I can with a heater. So this is kind of like a weapon in its own regard. And if I was shield on shield, you'd send attacks in to provoke their shield to come up, and then you'd lock their shield down with this one. And you do see like the Roland Moore checkers doing all the flowy shield fighting stuff. And I can sort of see where they're coming from with it, although I don't agree with that kind of method in general, because as soon as you start really putting some meat behind that, you tend to collapse. You end up in more of like a scrum and stuff, so it's not great really. Another thing I found, when we're fencing, it may be totally different on the battlefield, possibly, not really, but when you're fencing, people know you've got a shield. It's not a fucking surprise, okay? Like, if you're looking at me here, and I'm stood here, where are you going to be aiming for? Maybe you'll aim for the head. You're probably going to take that leg straight off, okay? So that is actually a #1 rule with sword and shield, when you're beginning at the very least, is you always keep your opposite foot forward. Like, you're not shield leg forward. You know, you tend to do that because that compensates for the weight a bit better. You got that nice little lean. But like this, that leg is out the way. You can slip back. It just makes life a little bit easier. Because you're going to be using this one for the weapon arm anyway. It makes life a bit easier. You don't get tanked to that leg, okay? You don't take too many hits to the leg anyway. You still will, go be careful. But yeah, people know that you've got a shield. They're going to be looking at targets outside of that shield. Or, you know, some people just avoid hitting the shield completely, which I think is silly. Especially with this type of shield. If I make a nice strong attack here, okay, that's going to fold in. And it might not give me an opening, okay? It's still got to go quite far around to get to that opening. But they have to correct that. They have to go back somewhere else. And if I attack these points and then go over, go under, whatever, you know, they're having to work to keep up with me there. So these shields can really tire your arm out after, well, after quite a lot shorter time than you give it credit for. Like, when they were using these for real, they must have been pretty, you know, conditions. So yeah, the round shield benefits from being able to punch out. You also get more of these movements for coming off to the other side. You can sort of, you know, do your more I-33 style stuff for definite. Like, you could definitely get into those positions. There's just a bigger weight trade-off. So you either need really good conditioning or you can't really be staying in those positions for a long time. For instance, if I went into left cover with the shield, it's kind of like, okay, cool, that was fine for now, but I'm really looking at coming up and out of there. And to be honest, with round shield, I-33 is not a terrible place to start if you've got nothing else. Like I say, I'll give you some other stuff, because I'm going to link Fred and Rob in the description, as well as some others. But definitely just, you know, the other consideration, actually, with shields, especially the bigger the shield, the sort of more you have to work around it. So you struggle doing sort of just handout actions. Obviously, you don't really want your hand out anyway when you've got a big shield to protect it. But you do find that you're having to work around the shield more. Like, you can't just name one for me. The main one for me is your first Custodes in I-33. When you first start practicing that, if you're like lazy with your shield, you're just in the way of your own sword, you know. Whereas if your shield's nice and high, it's not too bad. or if your shield's couched and at like a 45, it's not too bad. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but they are good. They are very, very good. In terms of shields to buy for HEMA, right, if I wanted to use them, we use these bad boys, which were made by the Order of the Blade, a guy called Andy Parrish. Really good fucking shields. I've had this one for 2 years, this one for 18 months or something, probably longer actually now as well. And they hold up pretty sick. We do mostly fight synths, to be fair, but they stand up to steel absolutely fine. We tend to find that these take a chunk out of the top eventually, whereas these, I don't know, I've never seen anyone break one of these, to be honest, so I don't know, but definitely, if you need one, Order of the Blade website, I suppose I'll drop a link on that as well. We're selling them online now, so, you know, get stuck in. There's something like 3 inch, no, not 3 inch, are they? Some sort of marine plywood with it's like a car door fucking lining over the top and bolted on. Pretty sick. They've got like a little metal strip around the side. They're good shields. All right, whatever. Buy a shield if you want one. Yeah, so I guess that sums it up, mate. Like, shields are shields, bucklers are bucklers. They're different weapons. They're used in a slightly different way. There's not fucking mountains of difference between the two. So if you're proficient with the sword and buckler, you'll probably be all right with the sword and shield. Difference is you'll be absolutely fucking knackered with the shield because you're used to little buckler. So yeah, that's about it. Obviously, when you get to like heaters, kites, other stuff like that, they're designed very specifically for specific things. Like the kite shield, you can have your foot forward because everything's covered. The heaters, you know, you've still got to make those considerations. Hopefully that is useful to 1, 2, maybe 3 of you. Okay, so let me know if not. Right, see you in a bit.